Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Can't overflow out here, you know? They, you've got occupancy requirements if it was a bus station or a restaurant.
I don't know.
Would it do any good? That's what
I mean, it's gonna have to be,
Yeah.
this one's not gonna, the one in Gloucester is not gonna be under this current.
It is now 6 o'clock. And it being 6 o'clock, we will now call to order this Brunswick City Commission regularly scheduled commission meeting for Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. Can we all please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? We will have Commissioner Harris do our invocation for us.
Bow heads.
Most heavenly and most gracious Father, Spirit of the one true and living God. Lord, we thank you now that you've allowed all of us to come to this meeting on tonight, to be in like minds and on one accord. We pray now, God, for an upper room experience on tonight. We pray now, God, that you would cover each and every person under the sound of my voice, starting from those that are in attendance from the community and flowing on up to the dais. God, we thank you now for all that you're doing in this community. And God, we pray that you will bless each and every one of us to make sound decisions that will benefit the entirety of this community. And so, God, as we move forth in this agenda on tonight, we ask that you would just grace us with your presence. In your most holy and precious name of Jesus Christ, we pray and we say, amen.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We will now move on to the approval of the agenda, where we have several changes that I'm going to read entirely so someone can make that as a singular motion. So we need to make a motion to remove item 2, testimony regarding nuisance properties. And we're making that removal because we know we will have a lot of public comment on some of the things that we had. So we wanted to make time for that full public comment. We will also be removing item 4, to consider approval of 90% site plan for 3302 Glen Avenue. And we want to add under city attorney items, number 12, consider approval for agreement with CRSA to continue to provide probationary services to the city of Brunswick Municipal Court. And add item 13, consider for approval a quitclaim deed releasing interest arising from the 1938 tax deed conveyed in favor of the city of Brunswick relating to a portion of 914 Amherst Street. I put that forward.
I'd like to make a motion to approve bringing forth those changes to the agenda.
Here in the first, do I hear a second? Here in the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to the adoption of the agenda as amended. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Here in the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes and the agenda is adopted. Right now, before we move on, Devani, I wanted to see if Commissioner Roll is online yet. I didn't want to continue to move through without making sure of that. Brian.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Okay.
She raised her hand and said she's present.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you for that. Yep, I got it. And then, gotcha. Okay, all right. With that, we will move on to our public comment period, and we will call them up in order. And up first is Mr. Don Myers.
Good evening. I'm Don Myers. Susan and I live on Beachview Drive on St. Simons. Thank you for the opportunity to share thoughts on nuisance properties. I'll share my longer remarks by email. There is a consensus in published research that housing is a priority for addressing homelessness. Addiction, hunger, and employment are often successfully addressed on a foundation of adequate housing. Ron Hall, producer of the movie Same Kind of Different as Me, was told that the number of homeless in our community was over 400, and we were a community of at least 450 churches. He concluded we have the resources to make substantial progress in reducing homelessness. Ron's conclusions warrant organized testing. The city and the county have joined with the school district to organize a land bank authority. Please celebrate that partnership and the game-changing opportunity the authority provides. More can be done at a faster pace to create affordable housing. I suggest the establishment of regularly scheduled authority meetings, distribution of minutes with a to-do list identified, and the hiring of a staff member. The urgency of this work is supported by acknowledging that Brunswick's affordable housing shrank by 298 units in 10 years. Rents in 2022 increased by 12%. Purchase price of a home over the past 10 years has increased 11.3% on average annually. The percentage of rental units in Brunswick is below the state average. I remind you that United Way, the Community Foundation, and the assistance from volunteers, from corporate support, and from taxes can help address both nuisance properties and homelessness. Funding for affordable housing is available. The number one reason individuals, businesses, and foundations give is because they are asked. Brunswick doesn't have a sufficient staff seeking government and private funds. Further, a public information officer is as essential to raising community funds as a grant writer and a development officer. The individuals and organizations the city government recruits will need an advocate within the city's organization chart that asks, how can I help? The commission should consider trusting more and identifying who from the city leadership engages the new staff and volunteer partners to verify your trust is well placed. Trust and verify. One major puzzle piece to achieve the mayor's desire for the next generation to have more opportunities is to focus on workforce affordable housing. Please think of nuisance structures and vacant lots as a resource to grow the number of affordable workforce housing units. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers, and appreciate that research. Up next, we have Mr. Starling Sutton.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak with the commission. I'd first like to thank the commission for the really good job and leadership that you have provided over the last few months as we have looked at this issue of homelessness in our community. And I sincerely mean it. And just talking to people who have been active in the city for 20 years or more, this is the first time that many of us feel like that we're really on the edge of doing something meaningful in the city. And we really appreciate the city government's leadership, staff, and the commission. And I appreciate the members that went up to Savannah to look and see what Savannah was doing. I'm not sure if you know, but if you go over to G Street in MLK, you'll see that same project, just a little bit smaller. It's the Veterans Village. Those are done under the same thought, same process, same people that provided the houses, same people that have provided the money. And I think most of you found that they have been successful. So I thank you and the city for doing the work. Done an excellent job showing what the ramifications of homelessness. We have yet to do a good job or much of a job for the solutions that the mayor has now asked for. But we do have solutions, and things aren't as dire as they look at times. We have talked over 3 months about the problems. But part of the solution is already happening. By the end of this year, by the end of this calendar year, there will be right at 100 housing units come on board for homeless people. That's 60 with the Hand in Hand group and about 36 with the Veterans Village. There's another 50 that would come on that's under progress with Alan Aldridge at St. Mark's Methodist Church, and they will be bringing on 50. All of these projects are not just a housing project at all. As a matter of fact, I like to just call them transitional housing, because with the Veteran Village project, it's a 3-year program. We do personal hygiene, teach people how to keep house, bring in a chef, teach them how to cook, provide medical services, mental services, work training services, job placement services. And as long as the residents keep their contract to provide, to work and to do the program, we provide the housing for 3 years. So it's a 3-year transitional program to take the person off of the street and transition them back into being a productive member of society. Saved by Grace is an important group. They do a lot of finding housing for people, referring people to where they can find housing. And the Salvation Army is a very critical component, even though it has a small number of beds. One of the things that I would hate for us to see is I've heard some rumors that we need to,
1 minute.
when we need to get a larger umbrella group to fix a problem. We don't need a new group to fix a problem. There's more than the 5 that I have mentioned, but what we need to do is support the groups that are already out there building the housing, doing the programs, working with the health department, working with mental health. Those people that already know and are doing it. We need to form a partnership with the city, with the business community, with the religious community, and the general citizens. And we need to make an action plan. We have no plan. We need an action plan, what to do, what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, who's responsible for it, and keep up with it. And I'd love to say more, but I see my time is up.
We appreciate you, Mr. Sutton. Next, we have Michael Luff. Good evening, Mr. Luff.
Evening, council. Sorry, I don't have a good speech here, but the well, the Sparrow's Nest, Faith Works, and St. Vincent de Paul here all helped me when I was homeless. If they weren't there, I'd probably still be homeless. And the way rents and stuff's going, I'm gonna be homeless again pretty soon if it don't stop. The rents have gone up way too high where I live. All the motels and stuff down in 17 gone up, skyrocketed. You can't get a place unless you have a big deposit. You can't get jobs around here because of part-time jobs through all these temp agencies. You don't get enough to even rent a room for a night. They work all day and they can't get room for a rent. And the stuff that the well does, people go in there that want to use it, that need help for its intentional purposes. It's good. There's swaggers that are doing it bad. And need to work with Dr. Culpepper maybe and get something, get an ID for them, get in the place. Get a picture ID, fingerprints. That'll take a lot of your druggies out of the place.
Can
They
you
come around.
speak directly into the
sorry.
microphone?
See, I'm not used to this, but for the homeless, a lot of people look down on the homeless. There's good and bad in all of us. Anywhere from the homeless to city council members or leaders, not the council members. And I heard that from somebody 30 years ago when I was in jail. Heard it from an officer. He goes, there's good and bad in all of us. There is. And I see something on my phone, which I'm trying to get used to using this phone because it's a smartphone. I'm not that smart. I see there's $200,000 going for people who have homes to where they don't go homeless. When we got so many people that are homeless, they don't have lights to turn on. I'd like to see some money get directed from the federal government and the state. How much money did Brunswick, the city, gets for homeless people? What's happening? What's helping them? Where's it going? And not joking upon it, but I see the Board of Elections has got to do home. When it's to add and hold home, homeless don't have a home to get rid of a home. They need help. And when all the people from the Well, Faith Works, Sparrow's Nest, St. Mr. Paul, most of those people are all volunteers. Most of them, there's probably a few that get paid up the office part. But if it wasn't for volunteers, we wouldn't have any help at all. Yeah, I've seen that before down at the Well. I was there from day one when it opened up. It helped me. I got through and got into a place finally. But there's so many people that don't even have that opportunity. They just need help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Up next, we have Ms. Roxanne George. Ms. Roxanne George, going once, going twice. I don't see her. All right. If not, that will close out the public comment period. We will now move on to public hearings, zoning ordinance amendment, number 3, amendment to chapter 13 of the Code of the City of Brunswick, particularly to add, y'all gonna make me 19, to be titled homelessness. City Attorney Corey. Oh, never mind.
I apologize.
She beat you. All right.
I will try to be brief. Mayor, commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I have many, many thoughts. I've tried to condense them. And I'm just going to read what I read. So this is a rough draft. Be kind. So what I want to say is that the problem with homelessness is not that there is a presence of unhoused people in our community. It is the fact that people do not have houses. This problem was not caused by the well. The root causes of homelessness are poverty, stagnant wages, unemployment, racial inequity, domestic violence, mass incarceration, and a severe lack of affordable housing, healthcare, and mental health and addiction treatment services. All of these factors were, of course, worsened by COVID-19, and it increased mental and physical health challenges and pushed people over the economic edge. And that's what we're seeing now. I say that rather than penalizing poverty and mental health challenges and criminalizing behavior essential to every human's well-being, we need to enact evidence-based solutions that address root causes rather than panicked responses to pressures to do something. We need to take pressure off our law enforcement. They are not the answer. The consensus amongst those who work directly on the problem of people not having access to housing and supportive services is that these are the solutions. Street outreach and relationship building with unhoused people, rapid rehousing, permanent housing and supportive services, affordable housing, and diversion of 911 calls for nonviolent, non-emergency situations to teams of medical and mental health service providers and transit. I know that the city is working on a lot of these things, but what I've seen actually implemented so far are actions that are widely acknowledged to be at best ineffective and harmful and counterproductive. Those are a ban on camping enacted to make it illegal to sleep in the city of Brunswick outside, a moratorium on additional services, an extension of that same moratorium, and an ordinance to require conditional use permits for those who want to provide shelter and services. Taken together with an emphasis on increased law enforcement involvement, and these actions criminalize homelessness and make it exponentially more difficult for our brothers and sisters in this position to survive, let alone improve their situation. Criminal penalties dig an ever deepening hole for those without resources. The cost for providing transitional housing services could be less than the cost of paying for the 3 places that homeless individuals end up: the emergency room, shelters, and jails. Sleep is a basic human need. Research after research in peer-reviewed journals show that not just consistent lack of sleep, but disrupted sleep on a consistent basis exacerbates and creates mental health issues, including psychosis. Some people call this a form of torture. So I want us to be inclusive in our processes. I want us to include unhoused people in these discussions. And I want us to be as proud of being a community where poor and unhoused people can get their basic human needs met as we are of our pretty downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. All right. Now.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Hope everyone can hear. The item that you have before you on number 3 is a public hearing based on the language in the current homelessness services ordinance. We did make a determination because it's regulating the use of a piece of property based on its zoning, that it would be falling within the zoning procedures law of the state of Georgia, which requires notice, 15 days notice of a public hearing in which people can come and speak for or against the amendment to the text amendment for the zoning ordinance. The body of the ordinance is substantially similar to the one that I presented to you at the last city commission meeting. I have had some feedback. I had some feedback from Commissioner Martin related to breaking out, there's a discretionary measure under 13-655 consideration for issuance. That would be 13-655 G, where it was previously defined as just schools. We broke that out as schools and college campuses or college campuses. As defined by Georgia law, they recognize the difference between a school as a locally operated, county regional Board of Education owned property versus a college campus, which would be one owned or run by the Board of Regents of the state of Georgia. So both of those are now recognized and separately defined. The other component of a comment from Commissioner Martin is related to the revocation of the conditional use. In other sections of our ordinance, if there's an event of such nature that it threatens the public health, safety, or welfare of the community, it does provide the opportunity to immediately shut down such a business for a 3-day period just to have an investigation, allow for an investigation and to make a determination as to the continued operation of the facility. Commissioner Martin asked that that language be included as part of the revocation language in the current ordinance. Those changes were made today. If there's any further discussion, we also have the ability to vote later, but there is a public hearing. I did want to explain that those two changes would likely be included in the final ordinance draft unless the commission deemed otherwise. And for after that, I would yield to the public hearing. Unless there's questions.
Did you want to move the vote? Or
Oh, I would ask for a point of privilege that if upon the conclusion of the public hearing, we could move this, the ordinance is currently under my city attorney's items. I know there's other items on the agenda, but it might be appropriate to have the vote upon the conclosure of the public hearing, if it's the will of the commission.
Didn't see in here that I want to.
you got a question? Okay.
Um, I did have one item that I wanted to make sure that's inclusive is that I didn't see where the facilities would be responsible for providing security services themselves, because the BPD isn't a private security agency. So that's my concern, is that we add some element of such into this ordinance, because that is a continuing strain on the police department.
Okay. There is a component that of course prohibits loitering, camping, sleeping, et cetera, at the homeless day shelter or surrounding streets and sidewalks. And it would be on the provider to ensure compliance with those laws. I would think that I would hesitate to try to put something universal in all three classes. So would you be asking for a potential security plan, perhaps for an overnight shelter, as opposed to, you know, if there's just a standalone homelessness services provider business?
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the question, is whether or not they would need a security plan if they were just open 9 to 5, providing a food bank, or if it was educational services or something along those lines. Is it?
Yeah, into the appropriate area.
Okay.
So could that be looped into the discretionary, at the discretion of the commission?
It could. I think
portion?
that it'd probably best to put it under consideration for issuance based on what type of facility or what type of class conditional use the applicant is seeking. Sorry.
What's that?
It's so annoying.
Yep.
But yeah, into the appropriate area.
It would probably be best to just place in the discretionary measure based on what the application requested.
Okay.
As part of that, the city commission could require a security plan for the facility.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to
yes.
speak through the
Right,
feedback.
right.
Okay. I can make that change.
Okay.
I think it's this one. I'm not sure.
know. Let's see if we can.
It's coming from that mic?
I think it's this
Is it
mic.
in the cord?
They're gonna try and do the. They're gonna try and get you locked in with the handheld.
That's
Probably figure that out. Well, you could probably just take it away. Yeah. There we go.
Check.
Jesus. Let's just make sure we turn it off, unplug it.
It may need to be unplugged, but I would still, we could make them.
There we go.
All right. Okay.
There we go.
That any motion to approve the ordinance would be subject to the revisions set forth by the city commission tonight.
All right. Perfect. So what I'm hearing is that could be wrapped into discretionary as someone comes forward. So the same as if we had a facility that would be a bar or something coming into the community. Before approval, they would come to us. We'd be able to say, what is your security plan? Do you plan on having X, Y, and Z? And that could go into our thoughts making that decision.
Right. And a lot of the discretionary measures included in this ordinance are found elsewhere in our code of ordinances related to conditional use or licensing for certain businesses, alcohol licenses, adult entertainment businesses, those types of specialty pawnbrokers, wrecker ordinances, storage, outdoor storage. All of those require certain conditional uses. They all have discretionary measures that the city commission needs to take into account when making a decision as to whether or not to grant that conditional use or that license.
Did we want to go ahead and make the move for the vote to be directly after? Or did you want to leave it? Do you guys want to leave it where it is on the agenda?
That's gonna be lengthy. That's fine.
Okay, you want to do it after public hearing? I said we want to do it after public. Okay, all right, so we will then take that vote after our public hearing.
I'll yield to the public hearing.
All right, thank you. We are now open for public hearing. Those who would like to speak on this ordinance, we would ask that you come in an orderly fashion, form a line here at the podium, and we will take you in order. We will now have it open.
We should have limitation of speakers. Okay.
I want to reiterate that this would be the time to have any public comment on the ordinance before us having to do around homelessness. So I want to restate that before we move forward as a commission. So is there any public comment? Yes, ma'am, please come.
Hi, I'm Samantha Mixon. I've spoken with you before on this whole thing that's going on with the homelessness, and I know that affordable housing is needed, but I also know that there is no affordable housing around here. Tiny homes aren't being built in time. They're not being, there's a 3-year waiting list just to move into a tiny home. So you have to be homeless for 3 years just to move in. So I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. And also with as far as the well goes and all that, it was just providing somewhere for people to go during the day, do laundry and stuff. It would be better off if we were to provide somebody with job training and job skills, instead of just having them sit there and sleep off a hangover, because I've seen them do it. And so I've tried to help several people, and that's the outcome that came around. And I once was homeless too, so I'm not saying anything bad about the homeless. I'm just saying there are conditions, and a place in New York is looking at reinstating the involuntary mental institution of the mayor, but I'm not sure how that's going to go here. But in New York, that's what they're doing to put their mentally unstable. And other than that, there are people that are just out there that it's not just the well, but it's like what it attracts and the people that it attracts around the area. That's it.
Can we get your name and address so we can make note of it? And you can give it right here to Devani. We are going to ask, I know that sound is quite irritating, but if you come up, if you can speak loudly into the mic. The mic isn't the greatest mic, so let's project that voice a little bit so we can hear one another. Yes, ma'am.
I'm hard of hearing, but if there was a way to either put a camera on this, which we'd have a screen up there so we
Okay.
can see the person's face.
Okay.
I can tell even you were having trouble hearing her.
Yes.
But if we turn this sideways so that you could see the speaker, but also everybody else could see the speaker,
Yes, ma'am.
that would be helpful.
Well, we got an item that's talking about upgrades in here, and hopefully it passes. Hopefully it passes. So
I'm happy to talk in circles if you'd like.
there
me
we
to,
go.
Mayor.
That's perfect.
I'm Jenna Kennedy. I am the Minister of Operations at FaithWorks. I just wanted to say a quick that we had a meeting today with the guests at the well, letting them know we were closing at your discretion, whenever you tell us to. And there were 40 to 50 people in that room, and half of them were in tears. And they came up to me in the preceding last 3 hours of the time we were open saying, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? I have nowhere to go. If it's not the well, I understand that. I just implore us as a city, as a room full of caring human beings to find a place that works for these citizens to go. Reverend Culpepper asked in the room if anyone there had come because of the well. No one raised their hand. Most of these individuals, my friends, are there because they were born and raised there, or they have family here in the city of Brunswick. And I just implore us as a city, and I can help be part of the solution, whatever you'd have me to do, that we find a place for these individuals to go, because there is nowhere else for them to go. They have no solutions. They have no options. They have no resources. So I just implore us to remember that in this discussion. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you give your name? Can you give your name and address to Bonnie? Yep, as soon as you get done, we can get him right over there.
My name's Edie Gorto. Can you hear me? My name's Edie Gorto. And I want to speak about my experiences at the well, if that's okay. When this campaign or whatever it is started, I started going to the well. And I started going and making donations and talking to the attendants and trying to find out what was really going on. And I went in there 2 or 3 times a week. And I talked to the people outside. Nobody ever threatened me. Nobody ever asked me for anything. Nobody ever scared me. Nobody ever approached my truck. But I met a girl out there. Her name was Michelle. And Michelle, she lived in a wheelchair. She had fell at work and broke her back. And she only had 1 foot. They took her to the hospital. She left the hospital and they took her to a nursing home. She stayed there for a while and she couldn't afford to stay there. So they carried her to a motel room. Well, she got $521 of benefit, I guess, for disability. She couldn't afford to stay in the motel, so she came to the well. And she came to the well in December. She stayed there. And she slept in that wheelchair outside the well every night, cold or rain or whatever, but she was there. But she hung in there, and with the help of the people at the well, after 4 months, she finally found a place that she could afford over in Jessup. And Michelle's over in Jessup now. And she found a room, have a bed, has a refrigerator. She sleeps on the floor on an air mattress. And she's waiting to get some other things, and people are trying to help her out. But that's the kind of thing that the well does. And when you take it away, you take all these people's hope from them. She has hope. And she's so proud of being in that place. She sends me pictures of what she's doing and how she's progressing it. And I'd like for y'all to think about that. Think about what it's like to live out there in the street. Think about what it's like to live out there for 3 years and not have anywhere to go to take a bath, not to know where to get any food that you know of, you can count on. And just like that for 3 years. And just think about all the other people that's fixing to have to go out there now and do the same thing. And I just hope that y'all can work out some kind of resolution that's going to be fair to everybody. Because I'm just like everybody else. I want Brunswick. I've been in Brunswick all my life and my family before me. And I wanted to see profit. I want everybody to be happy and I want everybody to feel safe. And I want Brunswick to be a better and a safer place for everybody to live. I think by giving these people support, then it will be. And I thank you for letting me speak.
Hi,
Okay.
my name's Elizabeth Milburn.
Yes, ma'am. Give me 1 second.
Mhm.
We're gonna get your name and address over here. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, can every, and we're gonna ask you, we understand that a lot of this focus is around one institution in our city, but this is an ordinance that would encompass any organization working in this space. So we're gonna ask if I don't mind tacit comments about kind of the organization at hand, but if we could focus those comments on the nature of the ordinance as well, so we could take in that as well. Thank you.
Then I need to think about that for a second. Because what I was going to say is that I see a lot of people here who want the well to stay open. But I would say that there definitely needs to be ordinances in place, like if the police are called there once a day, then why are the taxpayers paying for the police to go around there? And why are our police officers having to arrest the
Can
same
you
person
fix this?
32 times?
Thank you.
So why do
We wanna-
you get to
No.
continue on?
Talk to me.
And
Talk to the
if I
commission.
was a bar and I was open.
Yep.
And I had the police come to me once or twice a day, I would be closed. Okay. So why are we continuing to pay police officers and using their valuable time to continue to go to this one facility or other facilities without imposing some sort of fine on them? So at a point, if you're called maybe 50 times a year, then maybe the next time you get imposed a $200 penalty every time you're called. You know, there needs to be some sort of penalty for being open and not having your own security and having the police officers to come to your facility that many times. That also, I would like to say,
Mic check, mic check.
security for this community should be top priority. And right now, we're not seeing top priority security in the city. It is dangerous to be in the city right now. The well has caused a lot of issues. I've been at that corner for almost 40 years, and we noticed a change once the well opened. And it's just gotten worse and worse. And I understand, I've heard people say, well, you're painting homelessness with a broad brush. No, the well is painting homelessness with a broad brush by putting them all in the same painting. They need to be categorized. If you are like the children's shelter specifically,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Make sure we get your name and address there. Appreciate you. Anyone else, please come up. And if you want to speak, we don't mind you lining up behind the next person, so we know you're up. Good evening. Can we, I think, oh, batteries. Okay, solid. There we go.
Is there, where they're gonna go, but what's gonna happen, they're gonna move more out to the neighborhood, this creates enough crime. And I know this is a hard situation, the solution, but it is affecting residents. I inherited my grandmother. Years, blah, 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 blah. But this has become a problem because I see a lot of, they young homes, people cutting through my yard, it's never been that. So, just making that known and just being doing, according to post, they have to help them. So I'm just concerned about that.
Give me your name one more time. Ms. Richardson. Yes, ma'am.
What's the very all with, he's home. Recently, and she said, well, at this point, we just don't want to push it too hard because it has to be done. I just want more solution. I mean, it's a representative neighbor. I don't know if any of you on the commission have been through each other, but we're a nice family. And don't want to call, but you know, nowadays we still a little thing, but even when my mother was there, we tried to talk. It's a tendency. I shouldn't have been this one. So I need a solution as to what could be the next step to approach him. The city approaches him, which they have, what's first can be done, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Miss.
If I go all of us around here, it's beautiful. And I just want to know what can you do.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Richardson, I did want to let you know, the things that you are seeing is a part of a comprehensive plan. Inside of that comprehensive plan, we've already carved dollars out of the upcoming budget to ensure we do exactly what you're saying, which is clean out and board up at least 50 derelict properties throughout our city. So when you give Devani your name and address, if you can also give him the address of the home that you're talking about. I appreciate you. Thank you. Hold, maybe we got some batteries. Hold on. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're going to give us 1 second to get us changed out.
Thank you. My name is Tina Herring, and I retired from Georgia Department of Veteran Services after 31 years, 5 years ago. But before the well, I remember when we had the Holiday Inn down at the end of Gloucester.
We want to ask that you talk to us.
Okay.
That helps us.
We had the Holiday Inn down there, and I passed it every day on the way to work. And I thought that would make a good homeless shelter when we tore down the jail downtown and started the new jail. And then they wanted to start a third jail. I thought, that jail would make a good homeless shelter, if you didn't tear it down. But I've been looking at different places they could have a homeless shelter for a long time. I was talking to Mac Bollinger, who also worked in my office, and it was also before the well. And there had been a big article in the paper about the turtles being released. And it even said that they had a little radio on the back of the turtle so they could see where that turtle swam after it left the turtle center and the ocean. You can also look up great white sharks for that. But I mentioned to Mac, I said, no one cares where our homeless veterans go when they leave here. And he said, oh, yes, they do. He said, long as they don't stay here. And that's pretty much a lot of what I hear is that, they're concerned about the homeless, but just don't have it in my backyard. And what Jennifer Kennedy was saying, where do they go? And as far as the police go, that is their job, is to come when they are needed, wherever they're needed. And I do not see why the well would have to pay a fine for that, because that, all of us taxpayers pay the police salary so that we will be taken care of if we need them. That's all.
Thank you. Oh, Jesus. I want to reiterate as much as I can, because we are focused on a exact ordinance as best we can. If we can focus on the ordinance at hand, that helps us understand your public comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, is this close enough to the mic? All right. Okay. So my name is Kim Sepp Gornto, and I'm a teacher at Glen Academy. I've heard all the arguments. I see it from all of the sides, and I understand we're not just talking about the well. The issue is when you take away help from these people, there is a complete lack of understanding of cause and effect. They're not going to evaporate when the doors close. The people are still going to be here. There were over 50 people a day, give or take, that are in the well during the day. Where does anybody think they're going to go when any of the doors of the places that help them are closed? I've heard comments around the room tonight about, well, they're going to be over at the library. They're going to be here. They have to have somewhere to go. And God forbid we provide them the support they need to have a safe place out of the rain. It was 40 degrees on Easter morning. Can you imagine sleeping in the street? But you can't get in anywhere unless it's 36 degrees. That is absurd. That is absolutely ridiculous. Think about the cause and effect. Think about what's going to happen when these help for homeless people, for houseless people is taken away. Now you've got that many more people on the road, on the street, out here in front of Glen Academy, out here in front of the restaurants. I drove down Newcastle today to get here. There was not an open parking place. The restaurants are full. The places are full. Don't tell us everybody's scared. We can't go downtown when you can't find a parking place on Newcastle. Okay. Please think about the cause and effect of all of this. And that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to address the homelessness issue I went out and spit.
Give us 1 second, because you've already spoken and
I was
this,
waiting for everybody.
yeah, but it's also, we're not speaking on homelessness as a whole. We are speaking on the actual ordinance before us.
Right.
And so because I think you spoke already, right?
Yes, but
Yeah.
before I was talking about something different. I actually went out and spoke with some of the homeless to see what they needed.
Okay, we'll
And
give you
now-
30 seconds.
Okay. 30
Let's go.
seconds. All right. They need transportation
Okay,
because they have no way to get a job. They want jobs over near the other interstate. They have no way to get there. They have no transportation to get to Gateway, which is the mental illness facility. So therefore, that is some of the problems that I said, and you gave me 30 seconds.
perfect. Thank you so much. Pastor Culpepper.
I'm going to speak on your ordinance. And I do appreciate many of the comments that have been made tonight. We've looked at it. And while we feel like there's some things that are a little bit restrictive, we want to be in cooperation with the city. We want to work with you. We want to have Brunswick get on the map nationwide with your leadership of this is how you do it. And so we've looked at the ordinance, and while it restricts us a little bit of some of the things that we might envision doing as we move forward, we're fine with it. Just want to let you know that.
Thank you, Pastor. Good to see you again. Give us your name.
Nice to see you, Nancy Wilkes, and I own Maggie Mae's
Yes, ma'am.
Downtown Cafe.
Yes.
I've heard people stand here and talk to you about hope. I have hope every day that people can enter and exit my restaurant without being attacked. That did not happen last week. We have been downtown for many, many years. The times they are a-changing, but it is not for the good. I will support your ordinance. I will support anything that you can do for downtown businesses because it has gotten out of hand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and thank you for calling Brunswick home. We want you to talk right into that mic if you can for me. There,
There we go. Okay. I couldn't hear exactly. My name is Pat O'Shea. Last name should sound familiar. I'm here to speak on behalf of my wife who was pummeled in front of Maggie Mae's. And as you think about this ordinance or whatever's going on, I want you to think about this. That wife of mine has donated to the homeless, has helped homeless. She's been giving love all her life. She was walking outside of Maggie Mae's with a tea in one hand and bacon in the other. I was right across in my truck, but my phone went off. And I looked down at my phone, it was my roofer. I said, oh, let me see what's going on. I hang up after I get done with him. I look up and there's people around the front door. My wife was pummeled, hurting, and I thought, oh crap, she slipped. A homeless person, a not well person, I think, ran from the sidewalk, gave her a right cross. She went into a flower pot, cement flower pot. Doctor said 18 more inches and I'd be a widower. She was bruised from top to bottom, cut on the inside of her mouth. She got 2 blood clots on her legs that I have to watch real close. And I walk her in and out the door like this every day. I want you to think about it. I want everybody out here to think about it. I have sympathy for the people that are homeless because I've helped them. I get that. But let me ask you all this. Who here wants to pay my doctor bills when she got carted off in the ambulance? Who wants to pay the ongoing therapy that she's got to go through right now? Anybody want to volunteer? Because I have to shoulder this, as I know right now. Right now, I have to shoulder it. I don't want to call the particular place, but that was her address. Her rap sheet, that long. The last 4 charges were in Glenn County. The rest come from Bullitt County. Got released 3 hours later. I enjoy that phone call. 3 hours later, knowing that back on the streets, aggravating and threatening other people at Walmart and over there by Food Lion. I know because I got people that go over there, they know her picture. Everybody's heard about the other problems that they've had with some people on the same thing, got let go and did it again. I don't care what kind of ordinance you come up with, find out somebody's going to pay my bills. And find out a way you're going to protect the ones that are the proprietors that have the businesses that are looking out for these people, that are really doing the right thing, that want the right thing for the right people. Because she knows about 5 right now that she gives stuff to, well, used to, because she can't go down to the coffee shop no more because she can't hardly walk. So I want to know when she's helping these people, gives them sleeping bags and everything else, and has the heart. Who has the heart to look out for the people at work? I had 42 years at Pine Nova when it burned up the other day. 42 years I busted my butt, so I didn't get homeless. So I understand what it's like to have a homeless security and work hard. And I understand what people that got laid off out there many years ago ended up on the streets. I know both sides of the fence. But there is another story. I am sympathetic to the homeless. I don't know that this person is just considered as homeless, but I think that's what a lot of the people that are frustrated are talking about. Not just homeless as an entity, but people that have real problems. And I feel sorry for the Brunswick police. They're having to deal with a lot and they have no resources to deal with. So whatever you come up with, there has to be some kind of a guidelines and some kind of accountability, because she gave her address as the one we don't want to talk about right down the street. So I thank you for listening. Thank you.
Oh,
How you doing?
my name is Josiah Douglas. That's my dad, my stepdad. I nearly lost my mother because of a homeless person downtown attacking her. And I just like to say that I think that something needs to be done. I'm not going to say and tell you what to do. I'm not going to say and tell you what to think, but I think that if what we have been doing was working, then it wouldn't have these same issues that we're currently, being faced with. It's one thing to think about nearly losing my one and only mother. She raised me. My stepdad didn't get there until I was like 6. My mom herself lost her house. She lost her car. We lost my father to sickness and disease, and nobody helped us then. I mean, she's been nothing but helpful and kind to these people. And that lady didn't even know her. She didn't even look at her. My mother was not threatened by this woman because this woman never gave her a chance to be threatened by her. She attacked her out of the blue, out of nowhere. And I just think that it's wrong that this is happening. And why are we putting the well-being and safety of hardworking citizens and good people below that of people who are mentally ill and drugged? And I understand that they need help, and I'm all for helping them, but what we're doing is not working. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. That's the way that I see it anyways. And I'm trying to become a psychologist to help people, to help the mentally ill. I just wrote a paper about the homelessness and about their whole mentality and how they have, all these issues facing them and how that's the reason behind the homelessness. And I want something to be done of it. And that's all I'm here to say is that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say this again, because if I don't have anybody stand up and get in line, this is going to be the last person. So if you want to speak, stand up, get in line. If not, you're going to be our last speaker.
Thank you. I
Thank
did
you.
not intend to speak tonight. I just want to stand up and say that I do believe the ordinance is an important component of solving the problems that we are having in Brunswick because of the homelessness issue. I did hear some criticism against the request to have specifically relating to the Brunswick Police Department and the law enforcement and the first responder services. I just feel like that is an important component. I know you guys are familiar with this, but after 2022, there were 524, I may have the numbers transposed, calls by the police department. Those were responses they made to the well. And that means that that's a whole lot of demand on an already small force that adversely affects the rest of the city who lives and works day and night within Brunswick. And we're already operating under capacity. Then I think it's really important that there be some provision for that law enforcement not to be overly demanded. I know that there have been businesses that have been closed. I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago because of exactly that, law enforcement issues that were happening at that particular business. They were clubs, they were different organizations. I don't remember the name of them, but I do remember them very well because I have a family member who was in office at the time that was involved in that. And so, again, I appreciate the ordinance, the time that you have put into it, and I do believe that it is a critical component of what you are trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Wonderful. With that, City Attorney Corey, I'll call you back up to the mic as we move forward in taking this vote. I want to start out before we take the vote quickly and explain kind of the impetus of the ordinance, and anything you should clean up, you just jump in. Many of the citizens who came before us through these times of taking in information and testimony clearly stated that they thought that the city had somehow approved where the well would be, or somehow had some type of regulatory atmosphere around those who were providing homeless services. That just wasn't true. Because we didn't have any regulatory framework at the time, there was nothing to actually come before the commission so we could take the time to evaluate all of those providing service in this space. That is what this aims to do. This aims to put regulatory framework around those who want to operate in this space. Without any regulatory framework, there's no way for us to ask questions about distances from other entities in our community, whether it be a school or a church. There's no way for us to ask them for, as Commissioner Harris has said, a clear and decisive and transparent security plan for us to work in tandem with that organization. There is no way for us to slow down and approve whether the programmatic experience would be good, whether it be smart for our city, and truthfully, whether our city could handle such a facility. And those kinds of major decisions don't need to be made in silos and apart from the elected leadership of this city. This provides the regulatory framework for those who wish to operate in this space to have to come before duly elected officials to ensure that we make sure these organizations kind of fit inside the overarching ethos of our community. The second thing that I want to add is that any organizations working in this space, we had someone talk about a global plan, any organizations working in this space, we are going to ask directly as a commission that you work hand in hand with the Homelessness Council. That Homelessness Council has been set up by the city and the county. Anyone operating outside of that sphere, I think it's going to be difficult for us to understand how we move forward and how they would be working inside of a global plan that's approved by the entire ecosystem working in these spaces. So I wanted to put that out there as the framework of what we're dealing with. City Attorney Corey, if there's anything that you would like to add before we open it for motion.
No, not necessarily. I added in a component under the consideration for issuance of requirement for a security plan to be submitted. But other than that, no, I don't have any further comment.
Hearing no further comment, any questions from the commission?
Yeah, I have one that just as far as moving forward with a motion, that based on what we have been reading through and looking at over the last couple of commission meetings, that really the only additional change would be that security measure, security plan. I'm not sure where that, would that go in as part of revocation of conditional use in addition to, you know, like calls for service? Maybe that's what it's related to, or more of a preventive measure.
Well, remember, because you're providing a conditional use, at the very nature, you'd be putting conditions on the use of the property.
Okay.
So as a condition of the use of that property as a homeless shelter, if you've included and accepted a security plan that's been submitted, and there's a violation of that security plan, that would fall within a violation that could require revocation by the city commission. I mean, there's always going to be an opportunity also to cure if there are violations found by code enforcement. You know, most often on conditional uses, if there are violations found, code enforcement issues letters, and most often those violations are quickly fixed so as not to place their conditional use at risk. So I think majority of the time, a code enforcement looking at a conditional use brings something to their attention, you know, as opposed to losing that conditional use. Most people come into compliance pretty quickly. So,
okay.
But that would be a component, yes, for you to consider.
So maybe in light of that, if there was a suggested motion, once everybody's done with their questions, that might be helpful.
I think it's important that we, in the midst of considering all of this, that we consider that there's an effective triage plan in place. That, example, if there's a non-emergency call, we need to better triage how that call should play out. If the police department is going to be the entity that's going to answer that call, then we need to, from the origination of that call or the inception of that call, do better intake and receipt of that call so that the necessary entities or components in which they have identified to dispatch can be identified with other agencies, and those services also be dispatched at the same time, because our law enforcement are not mental health specialists. So for them to arrive on scene and not have the capacity to deal with a person that's suffering from mental health issues, that's not their expertise. They're law enforcement. They're not mental health specialists. And so if we make sure that when whatever calls are dispatched, that they are properly triaged in combination with the appropriate services. And that's where the nonprofit community comes into place. Those that offer all of those services, they should be readily available to act on those calls and when those calls come in. So the triaging of those calls are going to be one of the effective components in handling or going forward. I'm not really sure what the nonprofits have in place now or how they're doing it or how they're working together to combat this when these things happen, but it's something that needs to happen. And for us to be in the condition and in here tonight dealing with this is not there's a gap somewhere and it's not happening. And the expectation that the city governs this gap is not a fair expectation. The city isn't the governing piece of this. We are a facilitating piece of this. We are a supporting partner in this effort, but that's what the nonprofits get that nonprofit money for.
Any additional questions or concerns?
I think we found the problem.
We got the culprit. Yeah, I turned it off. Any additional questions? And so for Mayor Pro Tem Martin, how should this motion come forward with the addendum?
A motion to approve subject to the revisions discussed tonight.
Okay.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor.
We will now move on to public hearing around new alcohol beverage licenses. We will have Officer Brown come up.
Hi, we have one new alcohol license, which is the J.E.N. Incorporated. They are here. The owner is here today. I think we were deferred from it last meeting.
Wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and fire off these questions as you come to the front. You come up. Has he met with the MPA?
Last night,
Okay,
he was not able to attend.
okay,
He does not live here.
okay.
And so, and Pastor Dickinson was here for the Midtown NPA, but and they weren't able to attend last night.
Okay.
So.
I
Yeah,
think
he
that-
left probably about.
Yeah, okay. So as of yet, they have not met
They
with
have
the,
not.
okay, all right. Come on up. We just want you to tell us about your business, tell us what you're here for, what license you're here for, and I'm sure that our questions are usually uniform around this issue, so fire off for us.
Yeah, we have the Jane E and INC. I am the assistant manager there. And we are a convenience store and we want the license for the retailing and the wine and the beer retailing sale of. So it was there before this license was, but we are the new DBA. So we will continue, we apply the new license and that's why we need the retail license sales for beer and wine.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and let you know, just because I'm across the board honest on this. If you haven't met with the MPA, it's a no from me. I understand that you live out of town, but even if you should have connections with someone in the community representing you, or you got to make sure you get here for that meeting to ensure that the community has that say, because I wouldn't be in favor of anything coming into anyone's community, especially beer and liquor and wine sales, without them having a say on it. So with that, I will open it up to the commission for any questions. Hearing no questions, I will open it for a motion to either pass, fail, or defer to give the business time to meet with the MPA. Officer Brown, what MPA is he Midtown? Okay. And has he already been connected with Pastor Dickerson? Okay. 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 Can we make sure we get them together and before the next one? I understand you live out of town. My suggestion to you, and I don't control the commission, but my suggestion to you would be to find someone, if you're not here, that can represent you at that meeting, to speak very directly to the community about what your plans are there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll open it for a motion.
I would make a motion to defer this request for a new alcohol license until the proprietor has had an opportunity to meet with the NPA for that area.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second? Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Officer Brown, you got the next person.
Okay, this is one that was deferred or denied. I'm sorry, my apologies. March 1st commission meeting. Attorney Alan Tucker is here to represent H&H Mini Mart, doing business as In and Out.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
This is an appeal of a denial of a liquor license or a beer and wine license that was decided. The appeal letter is dated March the 7th, 2023. I think the decision was heard on about March the 1st. And this was an application by H&H Minute Mark LLC, doing businesses In and Out. And their location is at 1603 L Street here in Brunswick. And what happened here was Mr. Patel, who is the owner of H&H Minute Mark LLC, purchased the ongoing business that was there, and it had a beer and wine license. He purchased that business with a license, and of course, the license cannot be transferred. Therefore, he came in here and asked the commission to issue him a license, which it denied. And we have filed an appeal for that because I've read the code sections, which I believe is 36E through F, and all the other code sections that govern his actions, and he passes everything. So we just thought that maybe it was an abuse of discretion as to why his application was denied after there had been a store there at that location for years that actually had a beer and wine license. He meets all the qualifications. He's here locally. He's running the business himself. We would ask the court to, the commission to please reconsider and grant his appeal and grant him a license.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any conversation from the owners at all?
Manager on Mehul Bajaj Dalal.
Say that one more time.
Manager Mehul Edge Dalal.
Okay,
Please.
perfect.
Honor Hari Krishna Patel.
Okay. Any comments from you guys? Or are you good to go? All right.
Right, so I purchased this property. Like property was like in mess. I renovated the whole property inside and outside. But I did not expect this. The beer and wine license. I purchased the property with the license and with the business. I invested that money. And now without beer and wine, I cannot do business. Yes.
And would you tell the commission to what extent you went and expenses that you incurred in renovating this particular business place?
I spent $150,000
Renovating this place.
and on renovating around $37,000.
With the understanding or hope that it would have a beer and wine license.
So without beer and wine license, it's hard to do business.
And what type of business is it?
Convenience store,
And what do you sell other than, I mean, on a regular basis?
just cigarettes, and there's no profit margin in cigarettes or candy.
Anything else sold at the store?
No.
I want, before we appreciate you, before we move into public hearing, I do want a point of clarity for our attorney, Attorney Corey.
Yes.
There is no guarantee of passing on of a beer and wine license with a proprietor. That still has to come before us, go through the regular process. There's no way to be grandfathered in. You can't sell that. That can't be a part of a sale, or am I incorrect?
Well, there can't be, under the currently written ordinance, there can't be a transfer to a new owner. So new owners are treated as new licenses. And I think if I remember correctly, on this particular location, they had stopped. I think they had closed, the prior owner had closed and was no longer operating the business. Not for an extended period of time, but it had closed prior to this application. And so when it came before you, I believe, and I think I see some people in the audience today, there were people that spoke against it. And that's, I think, why the commission placed its basis in the code section Mr. Tucker cited, 3-6 E and F, which essentially amounts to whether or not the city commission in its discretion believed it to be a good location for the community.
And in that discretion, we are able to take in the opinions of neighborhood planning associations and the public who come to speak in our decisions.
Well, I would include them in that, yes. So it's essentially, and I'll read it in, other factors. So this is for what the city commission could consider. Other factors that may affect the general public health and welfare, including number of existing alcohol licenses, type of license applied for, the effect it would have on schools, churches, and public facilities in the area, the effect the license would have on existing land uses in the area, character of the area, and its sustainability for the particular use sought. F includes the commission may consider the history operations of bars and other establishments at the site, specifically applying for the license.
Perfect. One more question for Officer Brown. Do we have any issues at this location before its closure and transfer of ownership?
Last year, there was shooting. Labor Day. Last year, there was shooting, so, and just the people gathering in the parking lot. This was a shared thing with Rice TV next door. Gave me in the park.
Okay, I appreciate you.
And I would encourage the commission to understand that that's one of the reasons why that business closed and it was sold, and the amount of money and investment that Mr. Patel has put in a new place to try to bring it up to the city standards.
We appreciate that.
It's not the place that it used to be.
I want us to open it up for public hearing because I'm sure we have some people who would like to speak, but Commissioner Martin, I'm gonna save you the time, and she's gonna ask you a question about what else you're selling inside of it. And I think he's already answered that question. So I'm sure that will weigh on her decision as well.
This is actually a hearing falling under the city code section 326. It's a hearing for the applicant to appeal the prior decision, which was a public hearing. So in reality, it's it's the opportunity for the applicant to put forth evidence, as Mr. Tucker has done tonight. It is not a requirement that it be open for a public hearing, but
It was under the public hearing.
I see that. I see that.
Just for the record, and I do not want to silence someone who read this agenda and thought so. Do you have any printed evidence that you would want to turn in for the record for us?
We do not, but I have no objection to a public hearing if there's somebody else who has a public comment
Appreciate
about
you.
it, other than the folks that are, my clients.
Yes, sir. Well, we will ask you all to take a seat, and anyone who has any public comment on this liquor license, we would ask you to come forward to the podium.
And actually you referred to it, I also referred to it as a liquor license, but it is not a liquor license.
Okay.
It's for beer and wine only.
For beer and wine. I apologize. Yes, sir.
If that makes a difference for
Yeah.
anyone, it's beer and wine only.
Beer and
to
wine.
to be consumed off premises.
I appreciate you. Thank you. It's all.
Good evening to our, hello? Hello? Good evening to our elected officials. Who shapes the image of our neighborhoods? What is the process that enables each of you to occupy the seat of power you have? I have asked those questions because I respect the democratic process. I have asked those questions because the voices of our neighbors is the reason I stand before you again. I'm sure you know I ride a bicycle around Glenn County. During our rides, I listen to the comments that are made by our present and future geniuses. And some of them have to do with the blight and the ugly part of our city. Brunswick City Commissioners, I know we can do better. The city charter designates your representation, 2 North Ward commissioners, 2 South Ward commissioners, and the mayor who represents all of us. Before you this evening, we have 2 businesses on the agenda for alcoholic beverages in our neighborhoods. Even though one is not technically in Urbana Perry Park, it's right there beside it. The J&E owner has not attended, as you heard tonight, an NPA to present an appeal to the Midtown neighbors. The H&H Mini Mart LLC owner did attend an NPA meeting and heard our neighbors reject his proposed sale of alcoholic beverages in the neighborhood. And you've heard him tonight say they want to sell beer and wine so they can make money, cigarettes and candy. The Urbana Perry Park neighborhood is already saturated with opportunities for residents and visitors to purchase alcoholic beverages. Regrettably, it is not saturated with markets selling fresh fruits and vegetables, or meat markets where a butcher cuts freshly slaughtered meat, perfectly sliced as the customer desires. We do not have in Urbana Perry Park neighborhood cafes, restaurants, coffee, donut shops, toy stores. We are absent the mom and pop businesses that foster community cohesion and economic prosperity. The Urbana Perry Park Neighborhood Planning Assembly was formed to improve the delivery of city services, to foster economic opportunities, that is for local and neighborhood entrepreneurs, neighborhood beautification and infrastructure improvements, child-friendly and safe play areas for our children, as well as to foster pride and appreciation of the neighborhood where we live. So tonight we ask you to work with us. Help us to improve the image of our neighborhood. Hear us. Our neighborhood does not need another so-called, quote, convenience, close quote, store.
We know what businesses would improve and enhance our neighborhood. So what, you don't make $100,000 or $1 million in 1 year? Give yourself a chance to improve. As the Brunswick City Commission, you help shape the image of our city, and we must do better. Decline this alcoholic beverage license that's slated for our Urbana Perry Park neighborhood. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Good
Ms.
evening.
Collins, can you, yeah, Devani? Oh, okay, there you go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I ditto everything that Ms. Collins just said. I attend Urbana Perry Park Neighborhood Assembly Planning meetings, and I was present when Mr. Patel came to our neighborhood meeting. And I think we could not have made it even more clear that we were not happy about him coming, trying to get a liquor license for our neighborhood. L Street Liquors is maybe a block away from In-N-Out. We already have enough liquor stores. We have one at Winn-Dixie Plaza. We have L Street. We have 5 Points. We're saturated with liquor stores. I think that Mr. Patel's agenda is all about money. And if he was concerned about money, prior to buying that property, he should have done his research and he would have known the problems that existed at that property. So the fact that he spent his money on that business is not our fault. He should have researched it and he should have known what he was getting into. We oppose it. We opposed it in February and we oppose it today and we'll oppose it next year. Whenever he comes back, we'll be back. We don't want another liquor store in our neighborhood. Burroughs Millet is 2 blocks away from In-N-Out. There's a church on the corner of In-N-Out, and it's just too much. I don't want my grandchildren to have to walk from school past In-N-Out, past L Street Liquor Store, and the climate that exists there. And just because he's gonna put a drive-through, that's not gonna make a difference. It's still gonna be a liquor store. L Street has a drive-through. So he gave that as a reason at our meeting that it would make it better as far as keeping the people from loitering outside. The issue is the liquor. We don't want the liquor store. So if you had a drive-through and you were selling fruits and vegetables and meats and grocery and candy, so be it, but that's not his intention. So I thank you for your time and I pray that you continue to stand with us on this issue.
Thank you so much. Yep, yeah. I want to clear it up, same thing they cleared up with me. We are fully aware that it is not liquor, it's beer and wine, but I think liquor is being used as a universal term, but collectively we know that we understand beer and wine. Thank you for your comments.
And just this, I understand that, but beer and wine has alcohol in it. And to me, it's the same entity. So
I understand.
at that point as well at our MPA,
Yeah.
he actually said that he wasn't going to sell alcohol,
Mm,
liquor.
well,
He wasn't going to sell liquor,
Okay,
but beer and wine.
we got it.
Yes, thank
We
you.
feel you. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Kids.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor, Commissioners. Again, for the alcohol establishment there, In-N-Out, 1603 L Street. In our Brunswick Municipal Code, section 37, under subsection G2, I believe Mr. Corey is aware of that. It says, well, let me speak first to the transfer. Of course, we know that the license cannot be transferred. I appreciate you guys making that point. But additionally, there are 2 churches within 300 feet of this establishment, which automatically disqualifies it from obtaining a license. Additionally, under 37 subsection G6, where it discusses the 1,500 feet property, those are for, excuse me, this is rather small. Any property with a valid license for sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption or which is owned by the city or other government agency and planned for residential use. There are within 1,500 feet of that location, it is the Mini Mart, located at 2300, 2304, and 2308 Norwood Street. I believe we know it as the Fountain. Additionally, L Street Liquors is within that same range. And of course, within that 1,500 feet, governmental property that's for residential use is also McIntyre Court, Brooklyn Homes, and Abbott Andrews Terrace. So that alone should just allow us not to provide them with the liquor license. I'll provide you with an additional study that I came upon from the CDC. Our state is a non-quota, non-control state. There are 30 of those throughout the nation. CDC did a study on those. Alcohol density per capita. Georgia is one established off-premise establishment per 11,732 people. After using our most recent census data for the 2 census tract block groups that our NPA falls into, with the number of off-premise establishments in our NPA and directly adjacent to it, that gives us a per capita of one establishment for every 417.82 people. We are well above the state average for our NPA for the number of off-premise alcohol establishments for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kitts. And I want to thank you for your leadership inside your NPA and having them come forward to us.
My name is William Tresvant. I've been living in the neighborhood for 66 years. I'm just tired of my neighborhood always being flooded with destroying my neighborhood with profit, with people who don't even live in my neighborhood and don't understand what we go through. The beer and wine is what a lot of, you talked about almost an hour and a half homeless people, what they get, what they, fuel on. And because they don't buy the Crown Royal and stuff like that. So all you doing is coming in my neighborhood, making a profit, but you don't even live in my neighborhood and you destroying my neighborhood. We constantly trying to improve our neighborhood. And like I say, we have too much alcohol in this one small area. And for you to sell beer and wine and Black and Miles to a place where kids could come in and buy potato chips and stuff like that, you're helping them get on this. Because my thing is, you can go to Winn-Dixie, you can go to the liquor store right there beside Winn-Dixie, the liquor store. And when he said that the place had it before, but it was not the liquor store that was 1 block away from it then there. Now there's a liquor store there. So why are you gonna flood this area with the same poison that destroying my neighborhood? Like I said, I'm probably getting off script. I have a problem with, and I say that Republican not even pick up my trash debris. So my neighborhood is constantly overlooked and just used as a toilet. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
No, give me 1 second. If you plan on comment, we would ask that you come line up. So if you do want to speak, come get in line for us. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Mike Lehman, 1626 Tillman. I've lived there for a few years. I developed a curious hobby as I took my daily walks, and that was taking pictures of empty alcohol containers. I have literally hundreds, maybe thousands. Keep Golden Isles Beautiful runs an ad that says cigarette butts are our biggest litter problem. In Urbana Perry Park, it's empty liquor bottles. We are flooded with liquor, and I have nothing to add to anything anyone else said. I just want to add my piece to the problem.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Make sure you give your name and address here. We want to ask one more time. Please line up. If not, no, you're okay. Please line up. If not, this is going to be our last speaker. So if you want to speak, please come line up. Otherwise, it's going to be our last speaker. I'm going to say it one more time. If you like to speak, come line up, or these will be our last two speakers. All right. We
I
appreciate
live
you.
in Urbana Park. That's what I'm here to represent on this issue. Now, I come from a very large city, Baltimore, Maryland, grew up in Chicago. I live on Tillman Avenue. There's L Street Liquors. The shooting incident occurred was actually a family member of mine. And that area just draws what we all know, the young people just hanging out. My thing is, there's never anything given back to our community. That's what bothers me. And we do have the school. I have grandchildren going right to school there. With the neighborhood association, we've been working on with the younger people migrating. It causes all of that at that one spot, the in and out, the former in and out. So I'm gonna be very brief, as I said, but in our community with our younger people, we all know what's going on. It draws a whole shooting. I'm just saying, we don't need any more of that. We have enough. Because we have enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, sir. How about yourself? All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to voice this. Much like the young lady that just went right before me, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland myself. And so I moved down here to Georgia about a year and a half ago. I've been a homeless resident here in Brunswick for about 7 months roughly. And I've been to Claxton, I've been to Hagen, I've been to Savannah, I've been to Atlanta, I've been to Macon. I've been around a little bit for only being here for a short amount of time. And when I came here to Brunswick, the well was the only place that actually went, the staff there, the people there, all my great friends that I met there.
I don't want to interrupt you. What I want to do is give you about 45 seconds. I saw you came in late, but we are actually on to another topic. So I'm gonna give you 45 seconds because I want you to be able to
Fair enough.
give it to me.
All I want to say is straightforward. The well is a very humble place, full with a lot of really good people that are willing to go out of their way to help other people create opportunity for a better future if given the necessary chance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. How you doing? This is gonna be our last person.
Okay, I made it in.
They keep sneaking in. That's-
I promise, I made it in time. So my comment is on the subject of the liquor store,
Yes,
In and Out Liquors, who I believe they were just here a month and a half ago and they were rejected.
Yes, ma'am.
I looked up the ordinances to understand how they can be back so soon. But I'm not in favor. And as a member of Urbana Perry Park MPA, we don't need another liquor store in our neighborhood. So I am asking and pleading and begging that we reject them, you reject them again. And they were given some suggestions of alternatives, sell healthy foods, sell, fruits and vegetables. They've been closed since they were rejected before. So they didn't even make the attempt. So that's all I have to say. I'm glad I made it. I'm the last.
Yes, ma'am. It's all right. We're gonna get your name and address right here from you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. With that, pass it to the commission. Any comment or questions before we move on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
It's on.
And I have never seen a neighborhood come out and not want something like I have this one. And it wasn't this at this meeting, at the meeting where they were rejected. They were very strong and made it very loud and clear that they had enough alcohol, that they were saturated. So this is not just a commission thing. It is absolutely evidence that the neighborhood planning associations and the neighborhoods are standing up for themselves. And it's going to be heard loud and clear. So, but again, coming from the neighborhood, I know what the neighborhood is, and I'll reiterate what I told the folks before, and I mean this with everything I can mean. If you really want a good business, look and see what was happening in the past
in people's neighborhoods. It was not about beer and wine. It was about exactly what the people stood up here at the meeting before and asked for. And it's exactly what the people have stood up here tonight and asked for. The same thing. There's been no change. Listen to them. If you want a business, it's there. It is there. The need is there. It's been there in that neighborhood and it's going to be there in that neighborhood and it's only going to get stronger. So thank you very much.
With that, any more additional questions or comments? If not, I will open it for a motion.
Mayor.
Yes, sorry,
Sorry.
Commissioner
I
Rowland.
just-
sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to say that my sentiments are the same as all the other members of the NPA that I'm also a part of. It still will remain, no, because of the large amount of the liquor stores and stores that sell beer and wine in the neighborhood. And even with, the suggestions are all like amazing, but I just asked too, have y'all thought about, you can sell hair. This is an urban community where women, not me because I have a short haircut, but I mean, people are buying hair daily for like $250 a pack. Like, I mean, that might be a suggestion too. You might want to sell like hair products, but beer and wine is just not, it's just not one thing that's going to work for those of us that live in the area. So I just wanted to just speak out again and just say that, my answer will still be a no on this.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Rowell. Any additional comments before we move forward? Hearing none, I will reiterate what Mayor Pro Tem Martin has continuously said, that if you don't have fresh produce, eggs, milk, the basic necessities of living a healthy life, then it won't be something that she was in favor of. And I will add to that there are several small grocery stores actually doing very well on Norwood Street inside of the inner core of our community. So to say that the whole hindrance of being able to profit comes from not being able to sell beer and wine is those facts just don't add up. With that, I'll open it for a motion.
Mayor, it is
Yep.
an appeals hearing. I would,
Okay.
if there's any closing from the
Solid.
the appellant, and then your decision tonight would be based on whether or not you want to affirm or amend your prior decision on March 1st.
Perfect.
Could
And
we put that in a motion?
that comes to a regular
I
motion
mean, it would be a motion from the commission whether or not
to affirm the decision.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. Any additional comments before we close from the attorney? Hearing none, we will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we uphold our original decision, which was to deny the license for retail sales of beer and wine at 2806 Altama Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry, 1603 L Street. Owner Mr. Patel at the In-N-Out. Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll now move on to number 7, consider approval. We'll now move on to number 7, consider approval of April 5th, 2023 regularly scheduled meeting minutes. Do I-
Motion to approve as presented.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Consider approval of funding to support improvements to Old City Hall. City Manager McDuffie, you picked the perfect night to put this on the schedule. I don't know if you probably drew up the static, but on to you, City Manager McDuffie.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, Mayor, I was, cringing as I heard all of the difficulties with the audio visual, and it wasn't planned, but I was trying to get this particular improvement approved. That's why it was sent a little bit late and did not meet the schedule for the Finance Committee, but I didn't want to hold it because I knew, we had some difficulties last time. But basically this there was some improvements that needed for the windows, and we needed a little extra money, about $4,000 more. But we also needed funding for the audiovisual improvements. And I did do a chart to show where the money was going to be taken from. 39,000 is out of our contingency. So there won't be any change to the bottom line of the budget. We'll just make some transfers to support the audiovisual improvements and a little bit of additional funding for the windows. The IT manager is there to provide additional information about the system and the improvements. And also the assistant city manager is there to support this, any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager McDuffie. I'm gonna go ahead and probably say there isn't any person up here who questions what we're doing here. So if we have any questions, we go forward. If not, I will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the funding for the old city hall.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will be now moving on to number 9, consider approval of funding. There we go. Some claps for them mics. We're gonna hear y'all next time. Consider approval of funding for 2 police vehicles. City Manager McDuffie.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. The police department was to purchase 2 vehicles, and they did so in the budget earlier in the year and was able to get a couple of cars that were available at the time. They also had previously put on order a couple of cars, and I guess it was hopefully these incidents of, wrecks that we have had nothing to do with the cars on order. But we did have 2 incidents. I sent information about that. We had cars on order that did come available. So we wanted to go ahead and purchase those to replace the 2 vehicles that had been wrecked. So I'm sorry. Right down the streets. So we were trying to just make sure we could go ahead and purchase those cars. The money is in the budget. There's no change to the bottom line. It is in the police department budget. So if you would approve for that funding, just for those 2 additional cars.
Any questions? I see Chief Jones here. Appreciate you being here. If we have any questions for Chief Jones or City Manager McDuffie? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the funding for the 2 police vehicles.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those.
Let's go ahead.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes.
I've got a question. I want
Yes,
to
sir.
ask the chief. Jim, would you come? This is not about this item, but I have had a couple of conversations recently about alternate powered vehicles, electric. Is there anything available for the police other than a gas engine?
Yes, sir. We actually do have 2 that are hybrid. They're SUVs. And we've had those roughly 1.5 to 2 years now. One of them we had a little bit of trouble with. The other one's doing okay. But now both of them are fine. So they are a lot more expensive than a regular gas powered vehicle. So we did get an idea. We do have an idea now of the hybrid vehicles. And like I said, they do pretty good around town. It does save gas because at lower speeds, they operate on electric till you hit, I think it's 26 miles per hour, then it kicks over to gas. So we are evaluating them in the future as the prices come down is something that maybe we could
Good.
increase.
How about electric? Is there anything electric being made now?
Not as far as
Tesla,
full
you
police
need a new
vehicles.
Tesla?
They're pretty expensive too, sir. If y'all like to approve us to try a few, we'd be happy to. We'll put it in next year's budget.
I appreciate that information. That's good knowledge. It really is.
Yes, sir.
But try to find something for us. I'd like to see it. Really would.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Chief. We'll now move on to number 11, consider adoption of proposed alcohol ordinance, City Attorney Corey. And this is the second reading.
Can I ask one question before you start? Was anything redlined, redacted in here that we should, from our previous reading?
Give me one moment to pull it up.
Like, I know we discussed prices of or license fees based on the different
That
categories.
was one of them. Yes, we lowered the license fee on amenity licenses
Yeah.
from 750
To,
to 500.
right. Was that the only one? That's the only one I remember, but
No, there was another.
was that the one? Yeah.
I believe we also addressed, there was a note to address the certain classes as they were identified in one of the code sections as D, E, and F. Those were, I just removed specific notations to the actual class letters because that particular provision should only apply to on-premise consumption. So restaurants and anyone seeking an on-premise license for beer, alcohol, beer and wine only, beer only, and then full bar. So I removed because we were moving classes around, D, E, and F no longer represented the correct one. So just said, if you're seeking out to have an on-premise consumption license, then that provision would apply. So that was removed.
I know we've had this ordinance for a while, done some extensive work in, and I want to appreciate Commissioner Harris and Mayor Pro Tem Martin's work on it. I know they've dove into the weeds for us and made some changes to make this better. I know everyone has had the chance to look at it, Commissioner Roll included. Any additional questions or anything for City Attorney Corey?
I have one question. The application, the non-refundable application fee of $290.
Yes.
That's everyone across all the classes every year? Or is that just a one-time, first time at the point at which they file for their application? And then
Yeah. So
you go to the renewal rates listed 1 through 18.
No, there's a $290 fee for any new licenses. That is the application fee.
Okay.
And then the license fee is the greater amount that's listed 1 through 18. After the first year, if you're just seeking renewal, it's the $115 renewal fee. And then you pay your standard license fee, which is whichever class you've elected to do so.
Thank you.
Brian, on the list of cost on the amenity, I'd ask you about looking at perhaps reducing that.
I did reduce it. I see
But
that.
you didn't change it on the list. It's in your
I see that, but I did reduce it. It was
$500.
Right.
supposed to be redline. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got it somewhere in here as 500. You just didn't change it on your list. I appreciate you doing that. I would like to see it a lot less, but I'm willing to go along. I see hardship and I see people needing to have this in their businesses to appreciate their customers. So, but 500 is better than 750 for a small business owner.
So the initial amenity permit application is $500.
No, it would be a $290 application fee because they'd have to go through the same.
They've got the same.
Okay,
Yep.
it's,
And then it would be a 500. So it is essentially you're reducing it to account for the application fee.
Okay. So it's corrected then on the version that you have?
Yes, the version I had that I sent over had the very few red lines we had from the last time, which was the Commissioner Kaysen asked about the license fee for that particular class. Commissioner Harris asked about how those classes were identified in that particular code section relating to that on-premise consumption. I think those were the few changes we made. There was one item I know that we talked about, the jurisdictional boundaries of downtown and how that end of the Oglethorpe block would be handled.
Right. to
But I
G
thought it was
Street.
best to leave it at G until there's a determination as to like how that would be an easy amendment. It would be one code section amending the boundary. I think right now there's a geographical boundary there. And until there's some sort of, I just don't think that intersection may present sort of a public safety issue if people are attempting to go across it. Or it's just a very busy intersection with very fast moving cars.
Right. Okay. Well, we did get the red line version on the homeless ordinance, but we didn't get red line on this one. So
For whatever reason, I think when it's uploaded
Yeah.
to the portal, if it's in Word, the red lines don't show up.
Okay.
So when I sent the homeless ordinance in red line, I did it in a PDF form. I will endeavor going forward to make sure to do that.
Thank you.
But it should have been, I even accepted all the previous changes on the prior alcohol license, ordinance amendment to show those very few changes that were requested at the last commission meeting. And I know that City Clerk Atkinson advertised, we did not get any comments as to any of the other changes. So it is, I think the form that it's in, I assure you it's reflective of the changes that were
Okay.
requested last time.
it did show up for the classes part.
I noticed that. I'm
Yeah,
not
just
sure.
that one line.
I'm not sure why that is, but I did. I mean, I'm looking at it now and I see that it was not 500, but I did make that change.
Okay. Thank you.
So if there is a motion to approve, you can make that motion subject to these revisions that we've discussed and that were clearly identified at the last commission meeting.
With that, any questions? If not, we'll open it for a motion. I don't.
No, this is not a zoning
this
ordinance
city-
amendment, is a text amendment only.
Yep.
And it has had its first and second readings now, and it's been advertised.
With that, we will open it for a motion subject to changes heard this evening.
I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed alcohol ordinance with amended changes that have been discussed.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to number 12.
You might
which
have
is
to remind me which item is that the newly. added-
Consider approval for agreement with CRSA.
Okay, thank you very
Yep.
much.
And so to continue to provide probationary services to the city of Brunswick. And Brian, I'm gonna ask because this was an addendum this evening. Give us just a little bit of
I will.
background on how these services work and.
We are required by law. I think if everyone, I know that Commissioner Martin, Kaysen, and Harris will recall that in 2018, we did a full audit of the municipal court. GMA had sent out a packet helping anyone with the municipal court to do an audit, then review the contracts that you had with your municipal court services, make sure the services providers were in compliance with state law and those contracting provisions. Part of that is that as a municipal court, we are required to provide probationary services, whether internal or through a contracted service. CSRA has been historically providing that service to the municipal court. In 2018, to come into compliance with that audit, we enacted a amendment to the current, to the previous contract with I apologize. I'm trying to pull up my version of the contract. We enacted an amendment and it created a new term under the municipal code, court code section. You can provide for a 5-year term for probationary services. So in 2018, when that amendment was enacted, it included all the new contractual obligations that we were required by law to place in there. And it was enacted for a 5-year term. So that has come up this year for renewal. If you look before you, CSRA has been providing probationary services in municipal court dating back obviously to 2018. It's a necessary service that we need as we, sort of move everyone through the system. They have done it, I would say, admirably. They are always there. I mean, they're always in court. They're always taken care of. If there's people that are placed on probation, they monitor on behalf of the city. They collect fees, they collect fines when someone is not able to pay the fine at that time. They monitor whether or not somebody has completed community service. They bring cases back before the judge when there has not been compliance to either address a new plan, switch that person over to work alternative programs. So, I mean, they are handling that entire component of the municipal court services. I do know that CSRA has sent a representative down. Mr. Queen, he's been in touch with the assistant manager and I as we've kind of worked through and made sure this contract has taken what we used to have, incorporating the new contractual provisions that are required by law, and I am now presenting it to you for approval.
Any questions?
Yeah, have the prices changed any time?
No, they have not. There's the same monitoring fee, and then our fines have remained the same. So, a lot of this component is if someone has come in found guilty, most people there's a statutory requirement of probation if they've been found guilty on specific charges, but there's also the opportunity that if they need time to pursue the payment or to complete defensive driving school or to get their license back, something along those lines, this provides that service.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? I'd like to thank CRSA for sending a representative. Do we have any questions for their representative? Hearing none, we will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with CSRSA.
CSRA.
CSRA.
It's a mouthful.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to, make sure I read this correctly. Consider for approval of a quitclaim deed releasing interest arising from the 1938 tax deed conveyed in favor of the city of Brunswick relating to a portion of 914 Amherst Street.
That's correct. This was brought to my attention by Taylor Ritz, our tax collection specialist. This is a property that apparently is in the process of being sold. Title search was completed by the closing attorney, and they discovered that in 1938, there was a tax sale where no one bid on it. The city of Brunswick essentially was the highest bidder, purchased it. It was $39 and some change. Taylor somehow was able to also find the ledger from 1938, 1939, and 1940, showing that although this tax deed has not been marked satisfied in the property records, the owner at the time, which was Mr. I think it's DeVoe, did pay the taxes off. The tax deed should have been marked as satisfied.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've provided releases. Certain title insurance companies are not accepting those releases. They'd like to see the quitclaim deed be executed by the governing authority and filed. So probably about $40. It was paid in 1942 with all penalties and interest of 72 something dollars. It's noted in the city ledger. So this is.
That was before I was born.
I mean, I'm not going to speak to that, but so in order to allow the property, to move forward through the process of being sold, they've requested this. We have completed something very similar to this in the past when these things arise from time to time.
I want to number one, give a big shout out to Taylor. That was an incredible amount of work to dig into those records. I don't know if those are the paper records or what,
It
but
was a photo, it was a scanned copy of an old.
Yeah.
well, shout out Miss Ritz. So we appreciate the great work of our staff. Any questions? Here none, we'll open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the quitclaim deed, releasing any interest arising from the 1938 tax deed conveyed in favor of the city of Brunswick relating to a portion of 914 Amherst Street.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We do have executive session.
Yes, for proposed litigation or potential litigation,
Okay.
I'm sorry for litigation.
potential litigation.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session for potential litigation.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We are adjourned to executive session. Oh, God. I think we all got to come back up. I think we got a cabinet come over. Good. Put the green one on you.
They said, no. They said. Give us some demo. Can we have a working condition? It's a little ball. Yeah.
Smothered and covered. Is Commissioner Roll? I don't look as long as that. Yeah. Okay.
They give it the right information. Got it done?
I think so.
They said, we have people who join us because we choose, like, they're only taking the form of your form. And then, you know, I don't know, what is it, the cloud?
Right. You talking about on your education?
No, it's like a shoe.
Oh.
They were intending to be shoes. It's like flying out there.
Yeah, the stuff I bought is Nike.
Professional running shoes.
When you get in the Brooks and stuff.
Yeah, they did a series on that on.
Okay. Not on yet.
Did they give it up?
Do we want to give her a second? I just want to text her. I'm texting her now. Yes. Okay. Good job.
I miss my grandbabies.
Where are you going?
They gonna be. 7:30.
Michelle. I wish I could have been. All right. I will call this meeting back to order. We are back from executive session and we pass it over to Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to make a motion that in order to avoid litigation, make a motion to impose a 65-day closure of the well at 1101 Gloucester Street, subject to notice and provisions as set forth by City Commission.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now open it for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me get out of here. Yeah, you.